Hey guys, welcome to this edition of Coach's Corner, where I answer your nutrition coaching questions. We're going to dive into body dysmorphia and disordered eating and what to do if you're someone's coach.
All right, Asha, come on, let's go. Oh, ball is here. And we're going to go here. Oh, every time. Oh, thank goodness I buy pretty indestructible stuff. All right, happy Coach's Corner. So I love getting messages from you guys about stuff you're tripped up with clients that you're working on. And so I'm gonna share an email. The subject is called Body Dysmorphia Question. I'm gonna read it, and then basically we're just gonna jump in and answer her question. So, hey Jen, I'm really enjoying the course. I have a client right now who is chasing fat loss for aesthetics. He does tongue twister. He CrossFits or lifts multiple times per week, along with mountain biking, hiking, and has a very physically active job, and occasionally has to work 24-hour shifts. When we first started working together, he was definitely not eating enough, and he never had any rest days. We've increased his calories, good job coach, and is learning how to take actual rest days. He's starting to put on more muscle and he's getting stronger, but he still complains that he's carrying more fat in his lower body than he wants. I told him he needs to take measurements and do an in-body scan. Luckily, his gym has one, just so we know where he even is at. Otherwise, we have no way to truly track progress. I agree. But as I was talking with him yesterday, I started to get concerned that he is chasing this goal for no reason, and it's starting to cross over into obsessiveness and body dysmorphia. With your background, I figured you might have some good advice on how to approach this. Any thoughts are appreciated. So this actually for sure is going to come up if you work in the nutrition coaching space. If you think about eating disorders, disordered eating, normalized, healthy, intuitive eating behaviors, we all fall somewhere along a spectrum. And it's very hard as a coach to stumble across someone who's never been infused in the diet culture world that we all live in, right? Because it's permeated into the messaging we got as children, as teens, what we see online. And remember, disordered eating is on the spectrum before someone shifts into a full-blown eating disorder. Now, eating disorders fall under the scope of practice of medical nutrition therapy, which is where you need probably a registered dietitian that has experience in this, most likely a mental health professional, and often a doctor helping to oversee their care. But here's the key tenet. The earlier you catch disordered eating and you have an open and honest conversation about it, the more likely you are to halt its progression into a full-blown clinical eating disorder. And by that, I mean anorexia, bulimia, binge eating disorder, anything classified in that mental health diagnostic spectrum. Once things become a full-blown eating disorder, it has the highest overall mortality rate of any mental health illness. So as a coach, there's almost this duty to speak up the earlier you start to notice an issue, because you potentially are saving a life, but also it makes a huge difference in being able to kind of get someone back to more normalized habits. Remember that eating disorders aren't a choice. Disordered eating isn't a choice. They have no stereotypical form that they show up in. So people think of the skinny, starving, young, white girl, high-achieving perfectionist. That's only one archetype of disordered eating or full-blown eating disorder. We see it in males, we see it in overweight or obese individuals, we see it in older people, younger people, children, teenagers, regular adults. Disordered eating often is a way to have a sense of control. If you talk to anyone that has had a full-blown eating disorder or struggled for a long time with disordered eating, when things and stress isn't going well up here, it gives you a more limited thing to put your energy and focus into. So first and foremost, I want to go to some eating disorder warning signs, and I break them down into different categories. So category 1 is all about restricting your food intake and engaging in active dieting behaviors. So this might be things like making excuses to avoid situations that involve food, right? They're saying no to the work get-together or the family hangout where there's a meal or drinking involved. You might notice that they're eating very tiny portions, or they're looking around and comparing and eating less than those around them in that particular meal. You might notice patterns like obsessively counting calories, reading food labels, obsessively weighing and measuring everything, and they've lost this trust with their own body on just how much to eat. Everything is determined mathematically by a number. You'll see a lot of restrictive food rituals and food rules. So eating foods in a certain order, only including certain kinds of foods, cutting other types of foods out. Sometimes you'll see people ripping or cutting their food into very small pieces, or like ripping apart a wrap or a sandwich. Just some changes to their eating behavior. Also not uncommon that oftentimes you'll see binging behaviors, often in secret. So there could be large disappearances of food from the cupboard or fridge or freezer or pantry. You might see food wrappers hidden at the bottom of a trash can. You might see hoarding and hiding of certain foods, or not keeping foods in the main locations in the kitchen. So that might be like food is navigated and stored in secret in the bedroom or in the car, for example. And then just a lot of secrecy and isolation around eating, not wanting to eat in front of other people, very much eating alone or late at night or in privacy where they won't be discovered or disturbed. You can also potentially notice signs of purging behaviors. Not everyone who binges will purge, or sometimes you can purge without even having a full binge. So disappearing right after a meal and running to the bathroom, running the water, running the shower to cover up the noise. Using excessive amounts of things like mouthwash, breath mints, gum to kind of change the odor of your breath. People taking things like laxatives, diuretics, or enemas to try and flush things out. Responding to binging with long periods of fasting, intense exercise, especially after eating. Often you'll notice physical symptoms like complaints around a sore throat, upset stomach, diarrhea, constipation, even teeth discoloration. The big ones I'm going to get to that relate to this coach's client are the last two categories. Disordered body image behaviors. And this is often one of the first ones we'll see in the disordered eating spectrum. So we'll notice things as coaches like extreme preoccupation with body size, shape, or weight. So constantly checking their weight on a scale, spending lots of time in front of the mirror. We call things like body checking, where they might pinch themselves or check the circumference of their wrist or their arms or their waist, for example. These individuals might have really huge fluctuations in their weight, right? Where they're losing and gaining a lot of weight quite quickly. You'll hear them make frequent, "What are you doing, bud? Those are leaves." Frequent comments about feeling fat, feeling overweight, or this fear of gaining weight. And you also might see that they hide their body. They hide their shape by wearing really baggy clothing. And then finally, in the exercise category, things to look for are overtraining. So we definitely had this coach identify it. Always training very intensely, training through extreme injury, not feeling comfortable allowing them to take a rest day, exercising at really inappropriate times, right? Missing family events, holidays, exercising in the middle of the night, exercising despite extreme injury or fatigue, irritability, anxiety or guilt around missing a workout, just feeling really uncomfortable with taking that time off. And then as well as withdrawal from family and friendships or significant relationships to spend more time working out and exercising primarily to burn calories, manage their emotions, or give themselves permission to speak. So as a coach, you can probably see that this particular client definitely hits some of the body dysmorphia, body image, and exercise concerns. And then this coach is gonna have to, oh goodness, okay, hold on, let's free you. One second. Hold on, this is not good. Hang on. Oh. What I like to encourage coaches to do is start with this theme of be curious, be kind, and be honest. And I have these words framed on my office wall. You'll hear me say them a lot through this series, but it's a really great framework to open up a difficult conversation with an individual. So my first tip, if you suspect symptoms of disordered eating, is to do a little bit of background reading. So just like I shared some of the warning signs, I will link to a few, Ash is stealing the show here. I will link to a few great websites from around the world. So in Canada, we have NEDIC, the National Eating Disorder Information Center. In the United States, we have NEDA, the National Eating Disorder Association. In Australia, there's also two great websites I'll link to, which is the National Eating Disorder Collaboration, as well as the Butterfly Foundation for Eating Disorders. They've got really credible information for anyone who's concerned. Whether you're concerned about a loved one, you're a coach that's concerned, it's going to give you kind of things about what to look for, what to say, what not to say. The second thing is it's all about the environment that you pick to have the conversation. You never want to do this out in public, on a gym floor where someone can overhear. This is sensitive, confidential, private information. So you want to choose a caring environment that is, one, not able to be overheard by anyone else, and two, respects and maintains their privacy. The other thing I'd recommend with the caring environment is, especially if you're talking to someone where like you're a loved one and you might be eating food with them, or they're a child, a parent-child relationship, don't do this at the dinner table when there's food present. It's already going to be stressful enough, and food is going to amp up the level of feeling judged or attacked. So we want to do this away from food. Sometimes I even recommend doing this over a walk, because there's something really powerful about just going out for a gentle walk. You're not having to maintain like intense direct eye contact. You can kind of be by their side, just starting to talk with them. And again, movement gives that little bit of that built-in stress relief for both parties. So that's kind of a neat idea when you're thinking about the caring environment. The third tip is to be really specific with the right kinds of language. It can be so tough not knowing what to say, like this coach reaching out for help. Hey, buddy, you're crushing my leg. Come on back. Thank you. So you've always heard the thing about like use I statements, right? Not you statements, which are attacking. So here are some examples of some I statements you can use to open the conversation. I really care about you, or I'm worried about you. It makes me afraid, or it makes me really worried when I suspect I hear you vomiting after a meal. You want to talk in a really caring way, but also give them space to express how they feel. So I often like to use this sentiment so it gives a gentle way to back down, which I know we're still going in head first on a hard topic, which is, hey, I was wondering if I could have just a really real and vulnerable and honest conversation with you. As you know, one of the things that's really important to me as a coach is to always be curious, to be kind, and to be honest. And as a coach, I wanted to bring up a couple of things I've been noticing lately. I've noticed in our check-ins that you've been really spending a lot of time talking about like feeling very fat, feeling very overweight, really being dissatisfied with what your body looks like. I'm noticing that like rest days are really, really tough. There's a lot of guilt, a lot of emotion attached to exercise right now. I'm noticing things around like your food, that you're being really, really preoccupied with absolutely everything. And of course, as a nutrition coach, I want to support you in eating healthy, but I also want to teach you that balance and that joy and that freedom with your relationship with food. So it's not entirely all-consuming, all-controlling. And I might be totally wrong. So I want to start off first and foremost that the things I'm noticing, I might be reading into them too much. So I wanted to check in with you and just see how you're feeling. But with some of the stuff I've noticed, when we think about kind of like a healthy relationship with food, healthy eating behaviors, some of the things to me as a coach feel like they're beginning to overlap into some disordered eating patterns of thinking and relating to food and exercise and body image. Would you be open just talking about that with me right now? I know this isn't an attack, this isn't to make you feel judged, but yeah, I do feel a little bit worried. And my job as a coach is to be curious, to be kind, to be honest, to be here for you. Is that something you'd be open to discussing about, talking a little bit more about? And so then you can kind of give some pause and give them some space to answer. But notice what we did is we used I statements. We grounded it in symptoms and observations that we're noticing as a coach. We're saying, I might be reading into this too much. I might be wrong about this. I just want to provide a supportive place to talk about this with you. Is that something you would like to talk about? So asking permission, not just giving them a lecture and going at it. Really then stop talking and give them some space to start to explore a little bit. Obviously use things like motivational interviewing, asking good questions, keep digging a little bit. And if they start to open up and share that there's an issue, you might want to then, the next step is to be prepared with some local resources, especially in mental health and disordered eating and body image. There are a ton of great therapists. There are a ton of great dietitians that have expertise in this area. You might even, if you've been their trusted go-to person, maybe you've been their coach for a long time, this isn't to put yourself out of a job. You might say something like, if it's helpful to you, I'm happy to help look up some names or make a two-way introduction via email. If it would make you comfortable, I'm happy to even attend an appointment with you. So what I will do is I'm going to link the article to this Warning Signs of Disordered Eating and Eating Disorders. I think that's a great list to run through when you're preparing your I statements around behaviors you're noticing. I will also link the article on how to approach the conversation, what to say, what to do, and then all I can encourage you to do is find a private, safe, secure place to just start that conversation. Lead with curiosity, kindness, honesty. Don't push all too hard. If you get a lot of resistance, know that maybe you planted the seed and you want to keep the line of communication open, that maybe later they might feel more comfortable to talk about it. But the worst thing you can do as a coach is to notice warning signs that concern you and to sweep it under the rug and say nothing. Because the longer that this goes in secrecy, the worse it gets. So I want to leave you with a final quote, and it is from Brene Brown, who is an amazing researcher in the shame department. And to quote Brene Brown, she says, "If you put shame in a petri dish, it needs 3 things to grow exponentially: secrecy, silence, and judgment. But if you put that same amount of shame in a petri dish and douse it with empathy, it can't survive." So I think if you can show that person empathy, kindness, curiosity, honesty, and just start that conversation and strip the shame and the judgment away, you're on the right track as a coach to have this difficult conversation. I'm Registered Dietitian Jen Broxterman. Thanks for hanging out on Coach's Corner with Asha and I. I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.